Okay, today I'm going to look over the completed Planeswalker frame here to show off some of the new stuff that we've got in Magic Modules. I've already got the frame pretty much completed here, so we've got, in this frame, we've got our border mask and our foil masks, our image mask, we got a loyalty mask that's going to help us make our Planeswalker stripes later on, and then in here we've got our card files, and we've also got our blend files in this folder. That's a new feature we can do now. And got the stamps cut out here. I've only got the round stamps for this folder. We can do Universes Beyond stamps now. I'm not going to worry about it for this frame. Maybe we can add that later. What I am going to add to this frame is this border mask here, which is going to allow us to color the bottom of this stamp with the border color for the Planeswalker, so you can get that full border coloring that we see in Mystery Booster 2. So let's get into the code here. Hopefully this is big enough to read. So at the top here we've just got our basic MSE version. But in Completed Planeswalkers is a canon trim frame, where it kind of alters the outside of the frame like a Nyx or a vehicle. So that goes in the 10s range. We've got our, should update the version to today. We've got our dependencies here, magic, our 2 mana symbols. We've got magic modules, which is our star of the show today, and then mainframe extras for mainframe mana and mainframe rarity and all that. On this frame, we've got, this frame is actually a 750 by 1046. It's a double-sized frame, HD frame, but it's at a DPI of 300, which on MSE 2.5 will mean that it gets scaled down on your screen to a 375 by 523 normally. So it's an HD frame, it's double-sized, but it will still fit on your screen now if you have a small screen. Go down here into our scripts. We've got our template prefix here. More complex templates have been using this template prefix, template suffix. It's probably going to get more common now because we've moved a lot of our images into magic modules, which you can see here with identity. That's pulling from magic modules, it's /indicators. But our card and our stamp is pulling from the template folder, since this is going to be the only template that needs to use these cards and stamps. And then we're a Planeswalker, so we don't need a PT box. Since this is a very specialized trim frame, we don't need to worry about adding like Nyx or vehicle. That kind of defeats the purpose of this frame. And we've just got a very simple template frame here. And then right here, I think this might be the only 2 kind of random variables that we're declaring here. If you've been developing templates, you know that you get a ton of these, especially more complicated frames. Where you're adding a chop top, where you're adding unPNG to run mainframe rarity. But a lot of that has been condensed into either the base script or magic modules. So these 2 very simple ones are about the only ones that we're going to need to put in here for the promo and for the unsorting. Next up we have got our font definitions. So these maps here allow us to hook into the custom font system. So this right here defines our baseline. These are our defaults that you would normally define down in the fields, but they'll also be able to be overwritten by the user using the custom fonts. And so you don't have to define very much more, you just kind of move what you're doing, move where you define them. They're under this swap fonts name default, swap fonts type default, swap fonts body default for the main text. Next up we get our first real scary thing. First real scary script here. Include file magic modules MSE include /loyalty /init script. Do I have that pulled up over here? I do not. Pull that up over here. This one. So what that does is that pulls this script from magic module and it just plugs all of this into your script without you having to worry about it. And basically what the script is a lot of the code that makes mainframe Planeswalkers work. All of the auto sizing, all of the loyalty abilities moving around, all that gets handled by just typing in this one line here. Well, there's 3 lines, but we'll get to that. There is one thing that we want to edit in that whole system, that is this loyalty text box mask is set to our loyalty mask. Now what that is, let me pull this up. So here is the frame that we're using for the card for the Planeswalkers. And our loyalty mask here is going to be the area where we want the ability stripes to appear. So this white area here is going to be where our stripes actually show up on the frame. And this mask here is how we tell MSE where that's going to happen. And then for the normal Planeswalker frame that already has a default mask set up, but since the completed Planeswalker frame is a little bit different, it needs to have its own. And then next up here, similar thing, we've got a script here to define the foil mask. Let me move over here. In the base script here we have foil mask, base image, and foil mask blended image. This is a big script that will now take all the foil masks, because there were like 8 different ones of those between if a card had a PT box or had a round stamp or had a triangle stamp, and now it blends those all together. So you have a much simpler time of making those. If I can make these images bigger. So we can see here it takes the foil mask where it's just the border. It says that the foiling can't go on the border. And we have a foil mask loyalty, so the foil mask will go on the loyalty box if it's there. And we have the foil mask round, where it don't put the foiling layer on the little round part of the stamp. It gets cut out. And the way we tell it which is which is we have the foil mask added sections. Move this over some more. So if our card.loyalty isn't empty, then we add foil mask to our added section. And in the foil mask remove section, we add the foil mask round if our card is stamped. And those offsets we'll get to later. Next up, we have got a big long list of include files. So this section right here is all of our style files, all of our style fields. We have not actually added any unique style fields for this frame because they are all coming from Magic Modules. So this first one here is pop-outs, Magic Modules / pop-outs / styling fields. And that adds the option to have a pop-out art, and it adds an option that makes the art fill the entire size of the frame. We will need to adjust our image to actually use that part, but the pop-out itself will be taken care of. Next up is the texts. That one has the chops, and it has a center text option. Next one up is loyalties. That will have the options for moving the loyalty abilities up and down, and it will have options for changing the opacity and the color of the text box stripes. And we have rarities, which will give us alternate rarity. It will give us rarity offsets, which are useful for some frames. And then next up we have the watermarks, which I think that just gives us the card watermark. The card watermark option, I'm not sure what else is in there. Information, that's going to have the option to set a card as promo, to have the option to set a card as removed from auto count, and it will have like changing the color of the copyright fields. And then foils here is just the overlay option. That's all that one is, just putting in the overlay. Symbol fonts is the symbol fonts for the text box, so you can change that if you want it to be purple or something. You want to use weird symbol fonts. And the last one here is just fonts, and that's the custom font system. So if you want to be able to use whatever custom fonts you want in the frame, all you gotta do, include file, Magic Modules / fonts / styling fields, and you are done. And then we are done with the styling options. Next up we have the card fields, and a lot of the card fields we can just leave to Magic Modules more or less. So right here the first one is name lines. That defines the name, the casting cost, the alchemy and tombstone symbol, and even the little transform node or lesson symbol. That's one that you may want to disable for some frames because name lines does not give you the little color circle around the transform circle. So if that's not something you want to deal with in your frame, there's a way to disable that. I'll just leave that in for here, that's fine. Next up we have got pop-outs, and that just adds the little pop-out image, and it looks at the styling image, the styling option that we already added in up here with pop-outs. So we don't have to define how that works, it just Magic Modules does it for us. Next one down is type lines, so that'll get the indicator, the type line, and the rarity symbol. And then that'll have mainframe rarity and the alt rarity color already added in. Next up we've got watermarks. So that'll add the watermark, it'll center it around where our where we define our text box. So it'll be easy to click. And then next we have stamps. This one does not add the color backing stamp, which we showed earlier in the folder. This just adds the actual holofoil stamp. And it'll let us choose between the oval normal one, or a triangle Universes Beyond one, or the heart one, or the custom one, or whatever. There is a Magic Modules for adding the stamp backing, but we won't be using that for completed Planeswalkers. Next up is information. That's the entire bottom part of the card. The art credit, the card number, copyright, the list dot is down there. All of that just included with information, and if that ever needs to get updated again like it did for March of the Machine, that will be automatically updated and you don't have to worry about it. And then foils just adds the foil layer. Let's skip over down here to corners. That's something that Jenna Vensis made. Vensis? I'm not sure how to say their name. And that will let you set the corners of the card to either smooth rounded, pixely rounded, a diagonal cut, or square cut corner. And then back up here, loyalty card fields. Now that is going to control basically all of the rest of the Planeswalker stuff. What we got here? Card fields. So if we look at the card fields, that's putting in 3 more include files. The first one is ability fields. Now this file defines the colons, it defines the loyalty costs, it defines loyalty, and all of the boxes that go underneath them. And MSE will just automatically put all that stuff where it needs to go. If you've got a very special frame, there are ways to modify where they're placed, but for the most part, you don't need to mess with it, and we'll see that in the frame here at the end. The next one is stripe fields, and that deals with the base coloring behind the loyalty abilities, and then separator fields, which controls the little ragged stripes in between. And then, so some frames will only need 1 or 2 of those, and that's why they're split up like that, but completed Planeswalkers needs them all. Okay, next we need to look at our card style that we are still defining. So we've got our border color, it's very simple, 0, it's the width and the height of the card. But the main thing we look at here is the Z index. If you look at old templates, the Z index, especially of border color, would probably be like 0, 1, maybe 10 if it was really high. This border index is at 500. That's because for Magic Modules, we've had to get a Z index system that's very wide and also kind of strict. It's wide so that you have a lot of freedom in between each level, but there is a little bit of strictness that we need to maintain so that this whole system doesn't fall apart and with a lot of conflicts of layers. So 500 is about middle of the pack. That's where we put border color. So the image, the normal card image, or the card art, and like the card frame will be under the border color, while other attachments like the PT box or the loyalty box will go on top of it. And in card color, the top half of this mostly the same, 0, 0, width and height. That's at a Z index of 200, and it has added module card. This is a replacement of card background, although that still exists. And what module card does over card background is that its blend files, it will look for the blend files in the same folder that the cards are in. So the blend files can be in this folder rather than having 100 blend files out here in the main folder. So this gets to look a lot cleaner now. And then that has a frame mask because we're going to need to put the image under it. That's part of the z-index restrictions of Magic modules. If your frame really needs to put the image above the card frame, that'll usually be fine, but sometimes it'll cause problems and something to be aware of. Next up, we've got our image, and this was the option I was talking about earlier. This styling.stretch art the whole card. We didn't actually put that in, but that's part of the pop-out styling. And so when that's enabled, we make the image just the height and width of the whole card. Otherwise, it just has the basic image size that we need. Next, we've got the text box. And that's got its normal slots. It has got the chop top, right, and bottom that we get from the text module. And then it's got this body font vertical, which is how it adjusts for the custom fonts if the user needs to do that. And down here we've got the adjustment for modals. And right here is where you define your fonts. We use body font italic, body font size, and body font color. And then name and type will have the same things, just for name. And also PT will have the same thing except for PT. Or whenever you need to define those within the actual template. If you use Magic modules, that will already be in there. So our name from name line will already have defined all of these things. And then that's the end of our normal card fields. Everything else has already been defined. And then the last thing we have here is just defining our stamp backing, and then the little border around the stamp that I mentioned earlier. And so stamp backing is very simple. As before, we have module stamp, which works the same as module card. And that lets us put our blend images in that stamp file folder. We've now got this script is stamped instead of the very complicated is rare and not styling dot use holofoil stamps or whatever. Just is stamped, that's all you need to worry about. And the stamp border here is just basically a copy of that using the border mask and the card.border color, so it'll fill in the same color as the border over top of the stamp mask. And that's it. In less than 200 lines of code, we have got ourselves a Planeswalker frame. Let us go look at that now. Pull this up. And we are on MSE 2.5, so we can just search for completed Planeswalkers on the search bar now. And there is our frame. The name and type line are a little bit offset now, because their default placement is for like a regular card, and the Planeswalker frame is a little bit offset, especially because we've got the 4 ability Planeswalker going on with completed frame. So what we want to do is let's go to the console tab. We'll type in nameline offset top 1, and then we'll do that. We'll assign it, and let's put in, let's say, -20. What that's going to do is offset our name by 20 pixels up. That's probably a little bit too high. Let's try -16. Move it 16 pixels up, and that looks pretty good. We might need to fine tune that, but that looks about right. And then our type line will be type line offset top 1. That one's pretty big. Let's try a -60 offset on that. And did I type that in right? Nope. Type line offset. And that moved it up. Not quite enough. Let's try a type line offset of -70. A little bit better, but it's probably still a little bit too low. Let's go with 72. And in here, you'll get these errors that say can't convert function to string. What that means is just that the console thinks you should be returning a string, but we're returning a function. But we're setting this function, which the template will use to place the name line in the typed line. So that doesn't actually like hurt anything. And then there is that. Oh, sometimes you'll have to type in here to make it update properly on the style tab. And that looks about right. Now we can look over here. We can put in text into the loyalty costs. Type in our ability, and we can see the Planeswalker frame working here. Ability, and it goes 4. And it goes 5. And it goes... It'll just keep going. I think it'll go to 8 if you like really want to keep spamming it. There's our loyalty box. And over here in style, we can see all of the style fields. We didn't have to define any of these, we just copied them over. There's our pop out, there's our chop box. Here's our setting for our number of Planeswalker frames. And here we've got options to change the colors that are happening over on the text box. We've got a setting here to change the opacity. Got colors for the stripes. So you can adjust that to your art needs very easily. You can also change the rules text color. Oh, that's not set up right. Look at that. And there's the alt rarity color. There's the mainframe rarity name. And there's that's what watermark adds. It adds ways to change how the watermark is blended. If it will be a shadow or if it'll be a glow. There's remove from count, auto count in the promo, and there's the custom fonts all the way there at the end. And got a couple things to set up, but that's pretty much done. One thing before we forget, we've got to add these 2 offsets into our frame here. Which, we want to go back into our init script, and we'll actually add these 2 into our frame so that when we come back and reload it, let's save that as whatever. Come back and reload. Come on. There we go. Now those are permanently there. And there you go.